Alright, guess I'm gonna try my hand at this whole video thing and trying to remember to actually record as I go along with stuff and talk to my phone. Obviously I don't do that very well, so that's why I've already gotten ahead of stuff on this project. But my little girl wants to start a YouTube for her hunting and fishing and stuff, so I figure I can't really be much help if I don't know how to do it. So we'll kill two birds with one stone. I'll try and make some YouTube videos and create some content and stuff, keep up with some builds here at the shop, along with being able to have a little more knowledge to help her out on stuff. So with that, today we got my buddy Irvin's truck in the shop. It's his SS. It's gonna be getting back half, narrowed axle, 3-link setup, coilovers, and tucking these massive 30 by 13 MTWs. It'll be on a 28 in the front. He has already converted it to rear wheel drive, done away with all the all wheel drive setup on it. So all of that's been ditched. I believe he used a Reckless cross member for the 2-piece drive shaft. The front is on a coilover conversion already and was lowered a little bit. He raised it back up whenever he tried to put the 28s on because they were rubbing. So he just left it there, put these wheels on to be able to drive the truck around. And it's been to 2 shops already in Texas. And all they did was basically give him the runaround and waste some time. So he moved from Texas to Tennessee, hit me up, asked me if I'd want to build the truck for him. So told him, no worries, I got him. Bring it here once he gets moved and settled in. So got the truck here. As you can see, I'm terrible at recording and keeping up with stuff. So I've already removed the bed, the axle, the leaf springs, dropped the gas tank, and cut out the front cross member right here. Started getting measurements and everything to build a new cross member that I'll be building the back half off of to step it in. Well, as you can see, this wheel's got to sit all the way in until it is currently touching the frame, and it still needs to go in a little bit more. Then on top of that, the disc brakes. The caliper sits in about 4 inches behind the rear lip of the wheel. So this has got to go. We're getting rid of it. So we got all new 2x3. Gonna build him a 3-link for it. Gonna do a new fuel system, put a fuel cell in the rear so that we can have clearance for the 3-link and everything and not run into drive shaft clearance with the fuel cell once we narrow the frame in that much. So gonna build him a new fuel system and get the 3-link built. Once I get the back half done, get all of that mocked up, and then mount his coilovers, set everything to a ride height that he wants, get it dialed in, and then we'll worry about the bed. One of the previous shops has already cut the bed all out and they kind of butchered it, so gonna have to see what we can do about that. For the time being, he said he's got a bed cover, so we don't care. Then we'll worry about getting to the front and see if maybe we can mini tub it and do a small tub on a spire wall to make some clearance. Give him a little turning radius. He wants to get the front down to right about the top of the tire, maybe tuck the tire a little bit if it's got clearance, but he wants to be able to drive the truck, wants to be able to turn, so we'll have to work on that, make sure we get him some clearance in there, and no rubbing, no scrubbing, none of that. Want to be able to drive the truck easily and make it dependable. In the back, we're going to try and hide a chunk of these things. We're going to get the back down sitting pretty daggum low. We're going to make sure we tuck this 30 in the back, wrap around it, give it a good old bear hug. So like I said, I'm terrible at this whole video thing and trying to talk as I do it as well. So I already did this and already started building the front cross member. I did record some of the cross member, so whenever I edit all this, I'll put it back in. So it was done yesterday. As far as today goes, we're gonna get some more measurements, finish up that cross member, try and get the cross member put in, get it mounted, and then I'll start pulling all my measurements for what I want to do for building the back half, and we'll go from there. If I miss steps or don't record something, bear with me. Not great at this. So normally, you know, if I make a video or try and make like a TikTok or something like that, it's I just take pictures along the way of stuff as I complete something. And then it all goes together like a third grade slideshow at the end, you know, when I make my little presentation and like, here you go. It'll come with like a song on it or something, but they're terrible. I'm awful at this video thing. So bear with me, we'll see how it goes. If it sucks, you can say that. It ain't gonna hurt my feelings. I ain't got any. Alright, so we got our cross member built. Just something simple. A little step up to have some drive shaft clearance, nothing crazy. So next thing we're gonna have to do is we got to get in here, clean up the frame real good, get all this old build up and just, you know, years of driving off of there. Gonna get the last little stubs of the cross member off of there, cut them rivets out, get them punched through the frame, get those pieces off. Gonna get the cross member in here, get it squared up and everything. And what I plan on doing is squaring it up even with this front bed mount. And we're gonna keep the factory bed mount at the front, put the cross member here, build the back half off from right there. And then at the rear, because obviously it being an SS, he's gonna keep the bumper to go with the cladding and all. So we're gonna keep the rear portion of the frame that's factory with the bed mounts, the bumper mounts, and give him the option to keep the hitch in case he wants it. Don't know, I'll double check with him. But back half's going to come to right around here where this cross member is, and then I'll tie everything back in, box it, plate it all up, and keep him this so it all still ties in, bolts up and everything like factory. He doesn't have any issues with that. Nothing has to be crazy or custom made for any of that. And then the bed will sit, about lost it right there. The bed will sit on factory mounting points regardless of the back half that I build. So should still sit fine on factory bed braces underneath and all that. Then whatever I build will be in narrower, and I'm gonna step it up, do like a little notch shape in it and everything, give a little more axle clearance, because like I said, he does want the truck sitting really low and tucking these 30s in the back. So we'll do that. I'll come up with some kind of design. It'll come back, step up a little bit, bring it back down, and that way everything in front of and behind the axle will still be under factory bed height stuff. Nothing has to be done with the floor there. It doesn't have to be raised or anything like that. So for now, gonna get to cleaning all of this up real good so that I can get this cross member in, get it welded up, like I said, get those pieces cut off. And what I plan to do is I'm gonna notch where this frame wraps over, notch it out to let the cross member come up square inside of here, and then I have something out here to weld it to and be able to weld it all the way around inside. Then once this gets cut off, I'll cut a piece of plate and everything to box that and bring it up and tie into the width of the cross member. So everything will be completely plated, boxed in, strengthened, won't have any issues with any of that. Give it a clean look and all, but like I said, we'll be able to retain the factory bed mounts up front. Handy dandy Sharpie. Good idea of about where we need to notch this frame. Where it needs to go to. Helps if you find a Sharpie that works. You never have too many Sharpies laying around the shop. You'll need one that works. Now, what I'll end up doing is coming off of this bed mount straight across to get my exact point here. That way I know where I need to come to. But this way I got just an idea, so I know about where it's going to sit. Now I'm going to get in here and cut the rest of these pieces off from this cross member, get them out of the way, and it's hitting on a lip in here, so I'm going to grind that down a little bit so that it'll actually let it slide up. Because like I said, I'm going to bring it up and into this rolled lip and notch it in kind of an L shape since it slopes, and that way I can slide it up into it some, and I'll have that much more to weld it to have contact, help strengthen it up a little bit, keep everything good and rigid. And then at the end, like I said, once I lop all this off, this will get completely boxed and I'll build a gusset that boxes it in and comes and ties in to this cross member a little bit, to the actual width of it. That way you got a finished look and you have the added strength of all of that all in one. So now that we got that in there, got a ballpark idea to make sure everything within that area inside of here is actually ground down, leveled off, smooth, stuff like that. Grind them down, punch them out. Simple as that. Okay, we're gonna try the third or fourth time, I guess, to make this video. Apparently this remote is gonna get thrown in the trash, and I'm just gonna start starting and stopping from the phone itself, because I've made this video repeatedly now and it has not been taking it the entire time. The screen's just cut off. So I made a video of how I squared up the frame and got everything leveled and true, and then I made a video of me actually welding it in real quick, not all of it, but you know, so you can see some welding going on. But yeah, this thing apparently didn't work any of the times, so new to all this, but try it again. Hopefully this one's recording. So whenever you're doing something and adding in something, you want to pick somewhere off of your frame that is the same on both sides and is a good point to measure from. So like these holes are the same on both sides. You can see there. Any body mount holes are going to be the same from both sides. You have those. Some smaller stuff is more for things that run along the frame rails. Like as you can see, these two holes were for a clip to hold the brake line. They aren't over there. So other things are different, you know, depending on, like say this whole plate that gets welded in for this cross member. It's indented here, it's flat over there. So yes, there are some things that are different. Find you something that you can make sure is the same on both sides. Pick you a couple points to feel safe. Measure from that and make sure you get everything square. So we measured from the cross member to the front of this plate. This plate's the same on both sides and is even with this hole on both sides, and there's this cross member. So I measured from the cross member to that plate, and where it's 17 1/4, right to the point of it, from the top of the cross member. I did that on both sides. It's the same side to side. Then took this, put it at the rear of the frame across that cross member and the spare tire mount, zeroed it out. Just in case my jack stands or the floor's uneven, I use the frame itself and then zero it out. That way, even if it's on a 12-degree slope to one side, this will match the rest of the frame. So it's level to the frame itself, and you're always true. You can use a regular level. You just have to make sure everything else is level to begin with before you start building off of it. If not, you could have things off and uneven. So, like I said, this is zeroed out to the frame itself. Got on the cross member, tacked it in place a couple times, made some adjustments, got the cross member leveled out. It's good. Got the cross member straight up and down, made sure that's good. We're wedged in there tight. I'd already made sure the cross member was true side to side, even center of the raised portion is centered, stuff like that. So we're good on all that. Then got in there, welded it up, and we're welded as far as I could reach inside along the top, down both sides, and along the bottom. And then here we welded from about the middle over and around and down. The front, I did trim a little more than I was able to get it up flush to because of the curve on the outside of the frame. It's not perfectly square, it's rounded, so it does stop it from being able to raise up that high. So I cut a little bit more than I needed to. It's fine. I'll go back in, I'll take some plate, I'll plate that up whenever I plate the front after I get everything built off of it. But now we have a square and true point to build our frame rails off of for everything that we're going to do for the back half. Build our link setup off of, etc. We still have the stock frame rails, so I can, as far as measuring off other points if I need to double check, making sure the new frame rails stay square all the way back. I have multiple points that I can measure from. I will be cutting this cross member out and the front one for the spare tire mount. They will come out, but like I said, I'll brace across with some 1x1 or something just for added peace of mind. But I'll have the frame rail still to measure off of if needed. But now we have our starting point. So from here, I'll get measurements of what I need and find my angles and start mocking up how I'm gonna build the back half. And I normally do that with poster board or something and make templates of everything how I want it, so that then I can take the cut pieces of poster board, lay them over my tubing, and know where to cut. Way I'm not finding angles and stuff multiple times and all of that. Just speeds up the process a little bit, and that's what I like to do. Now, let's hope this remote works. And it did not. So let's see, try again. Hopefully it worked. Alright, so couldn't find any 1x1. I got 1x3. That's fine. A little bit more strength and stability and good flat surface if I needed to brace up anything on. So cut me a piece of it. What we'll do is I'll square it up just in case I need to double check a measurement or anything like that, or pull from it versus something else. So I'll square it up with the frame, make sure we're good to go, and I'll weld it up. And then once I do that, I'll have the cross member at the rear, this cross member here, and I'll have this just behind where the axle's going to be. So I can go ahead and cut these two out, and then I can start figuring up my frame rail that I want to build. And once I get it all cut, mocked up and everything, it can go ahead and go in the truck. But for the time being, I can get this in, I can get both of these cut out, and we'll be good to go. So with that, I'll pull some measurements, we'll square this up and get it tacked in place. So all we're gonna do, move all this out the way. Don't need that right this second. We'll move it out the way. So I'm just gonna pull from the end of the frame, see where this side's at, and then I'll put the other side at the same spot. So .26 inches on that side. Then we'll do the same thing over here. Actually, it has to come up a little bit. So that puts us right at 26 inches as well. On it. That. And 46 inches to the edge. Take this one more time since I moved that. .26 inches to the edge. clamp it. Double check it one more time. Be safe. Make sure it didn't move on us. Good to go. Alright, now weld this in place. Make sure it don't move. Then we can cut our other cross members out, get them out of the way. Let's see. Alright, pop our clamps off. That's in there. Good to go. Now, we have another solid cross member in that's temporary, obviously, but that's there. So these two can get cut, the spare tire mount can get ditched, all of that. We can go ahead and clear out room so I have space to get in here, start mocking up frame rails, and also have, like I said, another brace to help attach stuff to help hold it up. I'm only one person, so can only hold so much at one time. But another step along the way. Hopefully it recorded and you got to see it. And it didn't stop. Let's see. Simple and quick. Sawzall does great on removing crossovers. About got me. There we have it. Most of good bit of dirt. Other than the one cross member left at the very rear, we now have nothing else in the way of building the new back half. So we're good to go. We can start building what we want, the new stuff now, and nothing factory is going to be in the way until we get back to this point. And I'm probably going to end up doing away with this and tying in where it's currently at. Depending on how I do the rear of the frame, not sure yet, because like I said, going to be retaining the factory bed mount holes and bumper mounts. And if he wants to keep the tow hitch, it bolts all the way up to here on the bottom. So I have to come back over and tie it in a little sooner to keep full support along the bottom. I'm gonna talk with him, find out what he wants to do. If he's not concerned with keeping the hitch, then we can do away with it. And I don't have to tie in until I get back here to the bumper mounts, which are actually behind this cross member. So this cross member itself can go, and I can do like I did in the front and build me a new 2x3 cross member, tie it back in, and plate everything the same as I do at the front so it all matches. But like I said, I'll find out what he wants to do about that, and then I'll know for sure which way we're going to go with it. Alright, so like I said, me and this button are not getting along. It's twice I'm doing this video now. Like I said, I use poster board for a lot of stuff, for templates, for brackets, gussets, sheet metal stuff, anytime I'm doing anything with any square tubing. So this is 2x3 that I'm going to be using. Cut a piece of poster board into 3-inch strips. So now altogether I have a little over 14 foot worth of 3-inch wide pieces. So I mean, these are $1 a piece versus $100 and something stick of tubing. I can mess up, get measurements wrong, get angles wrong, figure out stuff, play around with ideas, stuff like that on this, and at worst I'm out, you know, a few cents. I mean, $1 a sheet, you know. So if I mess up one of these, and I don't remember how many out of it now, but so what I can do is, whenever I figure out how I want something, and say I overlay them and they're like this, and I've kind of made out on the table somewhat of a design within some measurements or whatever that I want, the shape that I want, then I can just simply mark where they overlap from corner to corner, draw a line, cut it, and that's my angle that I need. So once I cut that and I have my angle like I do right here, I can take that, I can lay it on top of my square tubing and simply trace that onto both sides, use a speed square on top and bottom to connect the two, and I have it cut out. And it just speeds up the process. I could sit here and find every angle and transfer it to the steel and cut it and everything like that, but this is how I usually do stuff, and it speeds up the process. Plus I use the same template on each piece, so when I use it for the driver's side frame rail, I'm using the same template for the passenger side frame rail, so I'm tracing the same piece each time, and it just takes away that much more of a chance for me to put an angle on something wrong, or maybe a wrong length. And like I said, I can play around with this, come up with different ideas, see how different stuff looks. If I like it, get done, tape them all together, and then put it up next to the frame and see if I like the whole layout of it and stuff like that. And I've wasted, you know, $1, and I can play around with ideas more rather than cutting up tubing and spending the time doing that and wasting more money to see if I like something versus I don't like the way that looks, let me scrap that idea. Just a quick little way to do it that I normally do things, and it's also, you know, it speeds up making templates for stuff, gussets, tabs, brackets, anything like that. Any sheet metal work that I do the same thing. I also do razor cages and stuff, so like making the high metal doors and trying to fit all around the plastics and everything. Tape a couple pieces of poster board together and trim them out to fit and get the curve and angles and corners and everything, so the poster board lays in there and fits every bit of the body that I need it to, and then I just transfer that to sheet metal. It's a lot easier than trying to put a piece of sheet metal up there and cut it out. me and this remote are not getting along. It's another video I'm redoing. I'm gonna get this figured out, and I think what I'm gonna have to do is I'm just gonna have to starting the video from behind the camera, make sure it starts before I walk off and talk and make a whole 3 to 5 minute segment. So, got the frame jig or cage jig cut off the table, cleaned off the table real quick. I'm gonna clean it up, get some of the surface rust off of it. I haven't actually had to weld anything on the table itself in a while, so I'll hit it with a wire wheel and clean it up. But now I can use the straight edge of the table as a reference point to pull off of and mock up a frame rail. And so I looked, none of these sections that I cut are any longer than or any shorter than the longest piece will end up being on the new frame rails that I build. So we're good there. I don't have to tape any together to extend it out and make a longer section. The longest point will maybe be this long. Most of these will get cut down. So in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll pull my measurements for a start point, which will be from the cross member that we built and installed, to an end point, which will be back before those factory bed mounts and bumper mount. And then I'll also pull my axle center line point and an idea of a height where it'll be with the ride height that he's wanting. Like I said, he's wanting the truck pretty low, wanting to tuck the 30 up in there a good bit. So, not that it'll take a lot, it's a 30, but still wants to have the truck still look low when it's riding down the road. So, we're going to get the truck as low as we can with a static drop on these 30s. I'll build the notch a little bit taller than, say, like an underbed notch or something like that, just because of the fact that the bed floor has already been hacked out of it. So, we're not trying to save the bed floor. There's no point. We'll end up doing some sheet metal work on it later on, and we'll give it something that looks good. But for now, it's already cut out. Might as well build a little bit more clearance just so it's there in case he ever wants to go a little bit lower, or maybe if he decides to bag the truck later on or something. But it's already cut out. There's no point in trying to go the bare minimum. So we'll give it a little more. That way it's there. A little extra space. So once I get those measurements, I'll lay that out on the table. I'll have my starting point reference, my end point reference, and then where my axle will be. And then all I have to do is take these and I can lay out a general idea of a shape that I might want for the overall frame rail. Obviously they'll get cut down. I'm not cutting them yet though, but I can lay out something like this, and basically that right there would be an idea for my new frame rail. Now, I may do something to add some more strength to it. I might come off of here with a little kicker piece and replicate this shape in an opposite fashion so that it adds a little support right there to keep it from ever wanting to bow up, just because all the weight now will be on coilovers behind the axle versus a leaf spring that's mounted front and rear of the axle pushing against the frame on both ends. It will be pushing all behind the axle now. So you do want to make sure you have enough strength so that you don't have a frame that starts to bow up over time. So may do something like that. But now with this, I can lay out what I want, kind of cut them to where I need them, and then I can come back and just simply cut or make a mark from corner to corner, trim them up, lay them all together. I can tape this all up and everything. I can go over there, I can tape it against the frame, make sure I like the look of it, and I'm happy with it. If not, I can come over here, redo it, scrap it, come up with a new design. All I did was waste some poster board and a little bit of time. But I can play around with it, have art class basically with poster board and come up with a design that I like and something unique. As long as I have my starting point, my ending point, and my axle location and clearance, everything else is kind of make it up as you go and be creative. It's the fun thing about building trucks like this. It's what makes them unique. So do whatever you want and build it how you want. So this, I'll get all of this done, figure out those points, mark it on the table, play around with the poster board, and have a frame rail mocked up that I can use and transfer to the steel, and then have an idea of how it looks and see if I actually like it. But this makes it easier, and I'm not wasting material in the meantime. So before I pulled the axle, I marked center over the axles. This bump stop is not centered, it's actually forward on the pad that it hits, and there's a little plastic piece that normally sits in here as like a little isolator between this bed support, and there's a hole there. It is also not centered. It'd be convenient if it was. You're actually just behind that hole, probably a 1/4 inch off center, and that is the center point on this truck. And when I say center point, I mean where the axle was sitting so that the wheel was centered in the fender well. The 30 touches the front and back of the fender well at the bottom. I had to wedge it in to get it to actually bolt up to the studs, and the back quarter panel I had to play with and wiggle back and forth because the extra body cladding that overlaps and goes inside the lips of the fender well opening were that much extra there, causing it to just be stuck. So the wheel perfectly wedged in, centered up. This is where the axle center line was. So I'm gonna make more of a mark here so it's more visible as I work on stuff and I don't happen to rub off that little mark. But for right now, it's my reference point for my axle center line for me to pull from the cross member to the axle, so I know where I'm going. And 36 and a quarter. Double check the other side just to be sure. I also marked it. Okay. So there's that. So let's see, then measure how high will this actually kick up. So regular underbed notch normally comes up to about in here on the frame. And then you have the boxed section that sits above it about this high. We're gonna go a little bit higher than that, so what I'm gonna do is go all the way to the top of the frame rail, and then the tube in itself will sit a little higher than that. Actually, we're gonna go higher than that because we may end up with this truck lowered enough that his axle sits about right here, and I'd rather him not only have an inch and a half of axle clearance before it hits the frame. Not quite thinking that the axle's gonna end up this high, just because, I mean, it's a 30, it's gonna get tucked in there quickly. With the truck sitting at stock height, well, it had 2-inch drop shackles on it, that was it. Other than that, the rear was stock. So 2-inch drop shackles, and the tire was at the fender well already. So if the truck gets a 6-inch drop, he's gonna be tucking 4 inches of the wheel already. He has about 2 inches of tire on there. So a 6-inch drop is normally a flip kit on these, and you do an underbed notch and you're fine. You have plenty of clearance and don't bottom out on it. So I don't think that we're gonna get any further than about midway of this frame at all, but just in case, I'm gonna go a little bit higher than that. So pull a reference measurement off of this, add the axle point, and so frame is 31 right there, and it's 32 right there, so I definitely have the back of the truck jacked up a little bit higher. I'll have to make up for that whenever I lay everything out flat over there, but we're gonna go with this. We'll say 2 inches above the frame rail as the new bottom. So the frame will actually be here, because it'll be 5 inches higher, being 3-inch tubing. So that'll be enough, and that'll be clearance for it. Alright, try this again. I swear every time I try and make a video, it doesn't work, but let me double check. Okay, we're still recording. Alright, so I turned the phone because I realized I was recording this the wrong angle the whole time on this tripod stand. So, you know, hey, whatever. We live, we learn. Alright, so before this thing messes up again, I laid out my measurements, pulled from the end of the table to here for how long the overall frame rail will be. Use this edge to pull from for all my upward measurements. So 3 inches obviously for the tubing. So that'll be one leg of the tubing right there. And I simply lay a piece of the poster board in there. Then the back was, I believe, 7 1/4 difference in height. So we have that. And then lay a piece of poster board in there. Then this is my center line for my axle. So it's just an eyeball reference point. I like to throw just a cutting wheel, grinding wheel, something like that. So you got something, you know, a little bit bigger than the axle, but it gives you a visual aid as you're building it. So, you know, it'll probably end up being about here on the frame, I'm thinking, and it'll have him still tucking plenty of the 30. But, you know, just in case, say he wants to just be real ignorant, and I don't know if y'all follow Irvin on social media, Herb Gotti. Yeah, he's pretty ignorant when it comes to all this stuff. So there you go. That's kind of how we are. We'll just assume it might end up here. And so with us being almost level on the axle with the rear frame rail, make sure that the notch section is still higher. And not that I think that it'll end up this high, but we still have clearance there. Like I said, it'll probably be about here. And with the coilovers that we're putting on the rear, it'll have a good stiff ride to it, and it won't just squat constantly for no reason. It's not, I doubt he's going to be ever pulling anything with this truck after this. So, you know, I don't see it collapsing that much to bottom out. So this should be plenty of clearance for the axle. Now, all I have to do is figure out where I want to put the frame rail coming down from the notch. If I want stretched out and gradual like that and draw it out, or if I just want it quick and pretty steep incline to it, get it over and done with, and something like that. So this is probably what I'll end up doing, is something more along the lines of this here. And then all I have to do is make sure this is on all my measurement points, get it there, put this about where I want for clearance. So you always want to make sure, no matter what, this isn't going to come in contact with your axle. So the easiest thing is set this all the way up here and make sure you're outside of that. Then at no point will your axle hit these two sides before it gets all the clearance, and you don't have to worry about it. So like I said, put that there, get the tip of the poster board there. I think I moved that. I did. Alright. Make sure all of that's lined up. And then it's as simple as where these two intersect and where these two intersect. Then grab our ruler. Connect our lines. Grab some scissors. And And now, put that point back, put that back where it intersects with this. Then I can take that, trace onto that one. Yep, we're still good there. Pull this off. And without factoring in any math, if you struggle with that, there's your angle that you have to cut. Meets up perfect. You don't have any odd overlapping gaps or anything like that. No ends that don't meet up. Nothing like that. Simplest way to go about mocking up tubing and finding your angles. Just like that. All you had to do is lay out your measurements that are easy to grab, and where the points intersect, you've now figured out your angle that you need to cut it at. Now I'll end up doing the same thing up here, and I'll lay this over this, intersect the points, make a little line right there, and same thing again. Draw my line on there so I know where to cut it. Give that a quick little trim. And now that's butted up. If I can get it to stay still. There we go. And then we have that butted up. Then all I have to do is figure out the angle that I want this to come down at. Do the same thing again and basically do it with a piece like this. And we're good. And then all I do is take this, lay it on top of my 2x3, trace over my edges, flip it to the other side, do the same thing, lay speed squares across the top of it, connect my lines, and we're done. I did no math other than my original measurements and layout, and you end up with your angles perfect every time where they meet up. Simple as that. Alright, and just like that, there you have it. Our layout for our new back half. Few minutes with some poster board. The only measurements I had to do were, like I told you before, measuring the overall frame length, the height that this rail was going to be at different from this one, the notch difference, and where my axle center point is. Okay, there we go. Decided to do this, like I said, just being that the coilovers will be in the back now, and it'll be all new back half and everything, so all the weight will be on this, and him adding the extra stuff that he's done to the motor and all that. I know he's going to drive it like a heathen, so don't ever want this to start to flex up any, so adding this and boxing this first joint in will just add that much more stability to it. Originally, just kind of picked a point, pulled some measurements, made a straight line, and I had it there and come down like that. And then when I stood back, I didn't like it because this wasn't in line with this. So I pulled the same measurement that I did for this on here, brought it down, it sits there. I took this piece, trimmed off the excess, which was that part right there, and redid it, and it was as simple as that. 30 seconds, and I fixed something so that it was more visually appealing to me. Like I said, all this is less than one sheet of poster board now, so I still have all of that left out of the same sheet, so it's about 75 cents worth of material to figure out a design, layout, and mock up for my frame rail. And now all I have to do is take each one of these pieces, lay it on my 2x3 tubing, trace my angles on it, and transfer everything to steel, make my cuts, come back, put them right back, each one in their place that template come from. And it was as simple as overlapping poster board that I cut out to the right size to begin with. Didn't even have to do any math. There wasn't no hard calculations, finding proper angles on stuff, and it wasn't no made up angles or anything like that, hoping that it fit, huge gaps to deal with, none of that. I mean, as you can see, everything fits right back in its place, and we're good to go. And then if I didn't like it, for instance, with this up here, if I would have cut that to begin with and had it there and tacked the whole rail up and seen it, then I would have had to cut this apart. I would have had to take this piece, cut it back down again, get it to fit, transfer the angle up more, all that. Would have been a lot more time wasted than a ruler, a pen line, and a quick snip with the scissors, and we're back in business. And now I have my frame layout. So simple layout, works, it'll be effective, it'll be strong. This right here will make sure it's plenty strong, with the coilovers being behind the axle now. He's done some motor work to it and stuff, so I mean, he probably gonna want to get on it here and there and all that, you know. So sure, you build the back half, make sure it's strong enough for any and everything that could ever come its way. Obviously 2x3 fully boxed tubing is already going to be stronger than the factory C-channel frame rails, so we're good there. Now the only thing is, make sure you have joints and supports to add strength to it as you go. But as far as that goes, there's what the frame rail is going to be. Now all I have to do is transfer all of this to steel. Alright, so now we're starting to lay out and transfer our templates to the steel. So it's as simple as, I've already done it, but take it, lay it on there, square it up. Like I said, just trace the ends, make a line, roll it over, make sure you flip your template, lay it on there, do the same thing again, trace your line, then slap the speed square on there and connect the two, and you're good to go. I've done that for as many pieces as I can get out of this stick, so I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna cut these, and then I got another stick over there I'm gonna bring down, lay those out, get to cutting these, and then we'll put it back together over there on the table, clamp it in place, and get to welding it up. Alright, and just like that, cut all the pieces, lay them in there, and there's basically our new back half frame rail. Now duplicate it, lay out some more on the other stick, cut them all out again, and then all I gotta do is lay these in here, make sure I square everything up, clamp it all in place, and after I bevel each piece, we can go ahead, tack it up, flip it, tack the other side, then clamp everything down, weld it up, let it cool, flip it, clamp it again, weld it up, let it cool, keep everything from warping or getting a bow to it, and then we'll be good to go. Do both of those, and we got two new frame rails to slap in there. Alright, next what you want to do once you got all your pieces cut, go back, clean up any burrs, any misaligned little edges where you might have had slightly out of square cut or anything, and then you want to bevel all of your edges. Give everything a good bevel so that you can make a quality weld whenever you weld all this together. You don't want to just butt up two unbeveled pieces or anything that you haven't cleaned up, because you might end up with a little bit of a gap where you might have had a crooked cut. As you can see on this one, you got a little bit off of the edge, so square that back up, go back, check your lines on it, square everything up, hit it with a flat disc, clean it up good, give yourself a nice beveled edge. Then whenever you're done, you got a nice clean edge ready to weld. Everything's ready to go. Alright, so got the first rail numbered, set in place, clamped down everywhere so nothing moves. Everything's been beveled, cleaned up on the edges. So what we're going to do is we're going to tack everything in place on this side, flip it over, clamp it down again, tack everything up again on that side, and then we'll flip it back to this side. Since this is the layout that I drew, only fits this way obviously. We'll clamp it all back down and we'll burn this whole side in and leave it in the clamps, let it cool down for a little bit, then we'll flip it, clamp it, and weld the other side. Try and keep it from getting any kind of bow or warp to it. starting to look like something. Doesn't quite fit the same now, but nevertheless, tack everything up and flip it over and start burning it in. That there, basically our frame rail. Do that, see what we're working with. That'll be the new back half. Just like that. Everything's pretty straight. Didn't have anything warp or flex on us. Good to go. Alright, got the frame rails in here, got them tacked in, got everything squared up. Gonna make a cross member for the rear. These 1x3s are gonna come out. And this will be the new back half now. So the fuel cell is 29.5 inches wide. So put the frame rails at 30 inches apart, give us a little room to get it in there. And then that'll step the frame in enough. We'll clear. Brakes will clear, be good to go. Get all this tacked in, all cross members done, and then we'll weld everything up and we can ditch the factory frame rails. And then we'll get the axle narrowed up and get it put in place and start mocking it up. Alright, everything's squared up. Got a rear cross member put in. This one and this one are just there to keep things square for now. Had to ditch the one right here. It was hitting at the edge of the notch, so cut it off and used it to put right there, help keep things square. But got all of this in. Got inside there welded as much as we could get to it for now. Like I said, that's all burning in, and there's burning in. So once we get this cut now, cut it off even with the bed mount, and we'll plate all this up solid, front and back, box all that in, gusset everything, do the same back here, gonna weld this, it's still hot. Weld that up, and then I'm gonna put a piece in there and box that off, and this will get cut, and retain the factory bumper mounts, bed mount portion, he said do away with the hitch. The only thing he's going to be dragging is ass. So we're going to get rid of that. The rear cross member and our fuel cell will sit right here. Once I got the fuel cell here to get it mocked up and all, I'll figure out where to build cross member along here. And then we'll build one from notch to have our coilovers mounted on. So next step will be starting to narrow the axle. But for now, that is the back half setup. Alright, so got a back half mostly built. Haven't cut the new frame rails or the old frame rails out yet. Got all the new ones built. Got some tacked in cross members in here to hold stuff in place. Now it's time to get over here and narrow up this axle. So we're going to take it apart, break everything down on it, and go through how I narrow the axle for these trucks.